This summer across our great country, there were riots caused by misinformation, disinformation. But actually, some of those people have genuine, legitimate concerns. What are their concerns? Oh my God, it broke the internet. Twitter went berserk. My Facebook went berserk. Paris hasn't got it. Madrid hasn't got it. Barcelona hasn't got it. I want the biggest events to take place in London. My dad, when he came to London, there were signs in guest houses saying no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. So within one generation of those signs, one of my dad's children has been voted by Londoners to be the mayor of this great city.
There's a very prominent politician by the name of Donald Trump who seems to operate in a totally opposite way. How did it feel when he kept coming for you over and over again?
It's personal, right? Let's be frank.
This episode is supported by Huel.
I want to start this conversation with a quote of yours. We should celebrate when optimism triumphs over cynicism. How do you maintain your optimism?
Just by virtue of my daily experiences, I spend every day hanging around London. I've just come from a visit in Golders Green, and we're a remarkably optimistic bunch of Londoners. And I think people don't realise this. I mean, the English people have a reputation overseas of these dry, we queue up, we always moan about the weather, and we're miserable, and our food's not great. And that's just nonsense. It's a caricature and a stereotype that it doesn't hold true for London or other parts of the country. And if you're ever feeling, down or in the dumps and stuff, it's just worth just thinking about what it is. I always work backwards. Why am I feeling? What's the issue and stuff? Then there's always, you think, actually, I know there's a reason why I should be happy, why I should be optimistic. And this is a huge source of optimism. I went today to, just on the way here, I did a visit where we launched a new bus route. And the community said, listen, we've been lobbying for this bus for 16 years. And what's special about this bus route? It's a really interesting story. We've got a significant Jewish community in Golders Green, a significant Jewish community in Stamford Hill. And you can go from one community to the other, but you've got to change buses at Finsbury Park. Right, not a difficult issue. We've made it free to change buses. But since October the 7th, there's been a rise in anti-Semitism. And the Jewish community said, look, we've not been attacked, but we just don't feel safe, right? Wouldn't it be great if there's a direct bus connecting these two areas rather than having to change in the middle? And so I made a promise during the campaign this year. So if I'm re-elected, we'll sort it out. I mean, it doesn't seem to be on the wits of us to sort out this bus route. It's got to be single-decker because there's a low bridge. And we launched it today. Oh my God, the enthusiasm, the optimism, the excitement. You think about the geopolitics in that community, what's going on in Israel and Gaza. A new bus route has made this community just so happy, and that's made my day. I mean, the joy from the community feeding back to me. Yeah. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, Jake, I mean, what I do as mayor, it's a little thing, right? A new bus going from A to B, not stopping at C to change. But for those people, I tell you what, it's not just made their day, they are just flying. And that makes me happy, makes me optimistic. And it shows, by the way, the power of politics. Yeah. A new bus.
So if we applied the same thinking then, Sadiq, and work backwards, would you tell us a little bit around your own background?
Yeah, so I'm the child of immigrants. The joke I tell I smirk when I tell this, I'll be the first in 3 generations of Khans who's not migrated. Why do I say that? My grandparents migrated from India to Pakistan during partition in 1947, if you're basically speaking. Muslims went from India to Pakistan, generally speaking. Hindus and Sikhs who were in Pakistan went to India, generally speaking. So we made, my grandparents and family, both mum's side and dad's side, make the journey from India to Pakistan, migrants. My parents migrated from Pakistan to London, immigrants, and I'm born and raised in London. I ain't going nowhere. So first and 3 Khans, not going nowhere. And so born and raised in a council estate. My dad is a bus driver. My father worked incredibly hard, really proud to be a bus driver. Mum was a seamstress. She'd be in the corner of the room with a machine doing piecework, 50p a dress or whatever. And they had 8 children. So I'm in the sort of the middle. I've got 3 older brothers, 3 younger brothers, and an older sister. Very happy childhood. I mean, looking back now, yeah, it was tough, and the challenges and all this. But I had a great childhood. I enjoyed school. Again, people tell me now, "Oh, you went to a tough school, bloody hell. You're the only person that come out of it done well and stuff." But I enjoyed school. Enjoyed university. Went to law school. I did science A-levels. I was destined to be a dentist. But a combination of, George Suits. Yeah. Well, my generation of Suits was LA Law, right? And so there's a great program called LA Law, and I used to be Cusack. I still want to be Cusack or Fuentes, And so and my maths teacher once said to me, you're always arguing, Sadiq. Why don't you be a lawyer rather than a dentist? And so a combination of Mr. Brown and LA Law, I did a law degree rather than dentistry. Thoroughly enjoyed being a lawyer for 11 years. I was a human rights lawyer. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And then the MP for where I was born and raised, Tooting, decided to retire. I didn't want to be an MP for MP's sake. It was just the idea of representing my community where I'd been born and raised in Tooting. I was an MP for 11 years, had the privilege of serving in cabinet. And then the opportunity arose to be the mayor of this great city. So I've been the mayor for the last 8.5 years.
Wow. So when you look back over that quick potted history, what are the elements that you see there? I mean, I can imagine being one of 8 kids growing up teaches you about sharing and
eating fast if you want to eat, get seconds, and speak fast if you want to be heard. They're the 2 most important skills that got me through my childhood. But yeah, you learn a lot when you've got a big family, sharing, empathy, love. I've always felt loved. I mean, that's the thing. I can't remember not being loved. Sure, you have arguments with your brothers or my sister, but then you get you become a teenager. I've got friends that I love. They love me. You fall in love, you get married. And so I've always, that's been the constant throughout, the love. Sense of family is really important. My religion's very important. I'm a Muslim. My parents are both practicing. That's quite important. Sense of giving back is really important. Most of my siblings, I think all of them, do some sort of voluntary work, whether it's coaching in a boxing gym or helping at the local swimming club, and that's really important. We all recognise the opportunity this city, this country gave us, because I've got cousins in Pakistan, ethnic majority, religious majority. I've got cousins in India, ethnic majority, religious minority, and we've done better than them, right? Ethnic minority, religious minority in this country, in this city and stuff, right? Which makes me grateful and appreciative of all that we've been given. And I completely recognise I've not pulled myself up by my own bootstraps. The reason why, I and my siblings and others have benefited and been successful is because of help given by others, by the state, by our teachers, by a grant, by, mentors and so forth. And it's really important to have the humility and to recognise that and that's, and to give back.
Busy parents, this one's for you. We've partnered with Huel, who've created the ultimate meal on the go, containing 35 grams of protein, 26 essential vitamins and minerals to ensure you're getting the right amount of protein, essential fats, carbohydrates, fibre, vitamins and minerals as part of a balanced diet. All you've got to do is click the link in the description to unlock your offer now at huel.com/high performance.
And was there a particular moment then when you look back that you recognise that somebody was lifting you up and giving you an opportunity?
All the time. My dad would tell all of us a number of things. Firstly, there was a recognition about the challenges. I'm not going to pretend it was utopian, being the colour of my skin growing up and stuff, but he had this phrase, you got to work twice as hard to be considered half as good. That work ethic from an early age, really important, but also he instilled in all of us, always listen to your teachers. This deference to our teachers was really important. I had great teachers, but we'd always listen to them, work hard defer to your teachers, take their advice. They know what they're doing, listen to them, be respectful, treat your elders with respect. And so throughout, council house, brackets because of the state. That as a bus driver, brackets, it was then, a nationalised bus company. Us getting grants to go to university, going to local state schools. And so throughout my life, I recognise, and this is why I talk about the power of politics, right? We can be cynical about politicians, and there are many things that my profession has done that we should all moan about and be unhappy about and do something about changing. But actually, there's a whole group of politicians who've brought about huge examples of good. The best story I can give you is my father's passed now, but he used to tell us about how when he first came to this country, and by the way, my dad first went to Australia. Apologies to my Australian friends, didn't really enjoy Australia, went back to Pakistan, came to London, fell in love with London. But when he came to London, there were signs in, guest houses and pubs saying, no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. And by no blacks, I meant anybody who is a person of colour, right?
Yeah.
So my dad comes to this country, signs saying no blacks, people like me, no Irish, no dogs. Huge discrimination. A Labour government brings in a law, the Race Relations Act, which outlaws that sort of overt discrimination. So you can't treat people differently because of the colour of their skin. And that changes the way people behave, but also the way they think. So within one generation of those signs, one of my dad's children has been voted by Londoners to be the mayor of this great city. That shows the progress we've made, but actually the catalyst was Parliament passing a law.
Can I ask you about the upbringing that you had and how you make sure that your children have the same fire in their belly? Because we spoke with Dame Stephanie Shirley, who came over on the kinder transport, right? And she said to us, I wanted to make my life one worth saving. You know, this immigrant or migrant mindset. 43% of FTSE 100 businesses are owned by either first or second generation immigrants, because it creates in them this fight, this fire, this desire to have an impact. And you would have seen it from your dad. You would have been inspired by it. He would have been inspired by his parents' story. Now as a parent, with your children living a lovely, comfortable life in a great city with their dad as the mayor, how do you light that fire in them?
Great question. I mean, it's a challenge for working class children to become middle class parents, right? Because my children, it's not their fault, they're middle class kids. Yeah. They often tease me when I tell a story. I don't want to do your 1 hour, lad. But it's like, it's not our fault you were poor, Dad. I mean, you know, it's not our fault, yeah. And so, but it's the value. It's about values. It's a great question, because basically we want to instill in our children the sort of values we had without them going through the pain and the anguish and so forth we had. There's a 3-generation cycle, isn't there? The third being dissipate. All right. The first, you mentioned the FTSE 100 companies. The first 2 generations do really well. The third generation dissipate all that's been accumulated by the first.
What are the values?
Look, you know, they're not rocket science values and stuff. Work ethic really important. You know, it's really important that you work hard. There's a temptation when you are somebody who's, inverted commas, successful, to rely upon nepotism or favoritism or favors or the network and so forth. You know, but work ethic is really important. You've got to work hard. Other things I think are non-negotiable. Treat others with respect. Respect your elders. Listen. You know, you can learn a lot by shadowing, by watching other people and so forth. These are values. These values are universal, but having them as your foundations, they're really good life skills to have going on. And it's really important because basically, you know, when I was growing up, you know, we didn't have a desk in our home for us to do homework in, right? We'd be doing it on the floor. None of us had our own bedroom. You know, I slept in a bunk bed till I was 23. I don't want my kids to go through that, just, you know, so they can understand the struggle and they can achieve well. And yeah, they've done really well. They're good kids. They're adults now, because hopefully those values have been instilled in them and they've learned from them.
Still living at home?
They are, both of them.
You've made it too easy.
Well, there's a great. My wife and I often joke about this, in fact, because, you know, my wife, so do I, love them being at home. Yeah. But there's a stat which, you know, goes to a serious issue. We've got a housing crisis in London. In fact, across most major cities across the globe. But one out of three children aged 30 will still be living with mum and dad by 2030. So I've got skin in the game in sorting out the housing crisis, right? All my kids are leave,
let's get this deal, don't we? So how would you define high performance then, Sadiq?
For me, it's a number of things. But the key thing is that the work ethic. You know, there is an alternative. You know, work hard, Tina. There's an alternative. You've got to work hard. Really important. Second thing is treat people well. Treat people civil. You know, there's a school of thought. You got to be mean and nasty and horrible to get to the top. You know, you don't. And so I'm really proud. When I was a lawyer, when I was a parliamentarian, now as mayor, the environment in my team is one where we treat each other with respect. Junior members of staff can suggest ideas. They're treated with respect. You know, I'll ask people, what do you think? You know, bring you in. You may come up with 10 ideas. I'll reject 9 of them, but I may accept 1. But keep on coming up with those ideas. And the third thing is understand the mission, the purpose, the goal. So, you know, so it could be we want to deliver a greener London, a fairer London, a safer London. We want to be the helping hand that I benefited from if you work hard. And that purpose is really important. You know, JFK famously had moonshot, I beg your pardon. Prince William's got earthshot. And for us, you know, having that common purpose is important in relation to the job of politics. And so, understanding what the mission is about, whether you do comms, you do social media, you do policy, you're one of our apprentices, whatever role you play in the team, understand, work hard, treat others with respect, understand what the mission is, what the goal is, and that leads to high performance. And the final bit, sorry, Jake, consistency, not a one-hit wonder. We've got to keep those high levels up throughout my tenure. Why? First, so I can successfully reapply for my job, but secondly, so we can deliver. And so, winning the Premier League once is fine. It's great. Winning the FA Cup once is fine, or the Champions League, or winning Wimbledon once. But can you do it again and again and again and again and again? That's why I'm in awe of the Djokovic and the Nadals and the Federers, or the Pep Guardiolas and stuff, or Alex Ferguson or Ali, again and again and again. And so look, in the current climate across the globe, most politicians have a very short life expectancy, one-term wonders, including in this country, sometimes 49 days. And so they may have got the high performance bit right in relation to getting there, but they've not kept it once they've got there. There's a great Cuomo, former governor of New York, saying you campaign in poetry, you govern in prose. Well, I want to govern in poetry, to keep on going, keep the consistency up and stuff is really important.
So are you incredibly proud of the fact that you've won successive terms as mayor?
No, of course I'm really proud that we've broken records in relation to the electoral results, but it's what we've achieved in between them. There are other people, who've won elections, but actually what have they actually achieved once they've won those elections, So yeah, of course, there's a huge sense of pride in the team that we've had these great results against all the odds again and again and again, breaking all records. But it's what we achieve with them. It's the phrase I use in my team, because, is it's not about making history, it's about shaping our future. And your focus has got to be, it's great to be in the record books, and I think those records aren't going to be broken, by the way, but it's about what we can do with this mandate, a huge mandate. And the joy of politics in a democracy is you've now got permission to do what you promised. Yeah. And we made some pretty big promises. We've now got permission to do that. And so it may be bumpy initially in relation to, people aren't always receptive in the short term, but you say in a respectful way, without being patronising, but I promised I would achieve this, and to do so, we've got to have a bit of bumpiness on the way, because it's really important that people see, in my profession, politicians deliver.
I want to talk about specifically how you go about making decisions, not from a political angle, but from a personal angle about how you do this, because I think that the decisions that you take are often really huge decisions that will, as you know, will impact millions of people. So how do you work out what the decision should be? What's your process? It's
really important to have a diverse a range of views around you. There's nothing worse than an echo chamber. So when I was a lawyer, I learned early doors, because just to explain, in this country we've got solicitors and barristers, right? The joke amongst solicitors is we do all the work, solicitors, and barristers are the posers in the court, right? Which is true. All right. Keir Starmer was a barrister, by the way. Dear friend. So as a solicitor, you would organise the case, interview the witnesses, right? Instruct the experts, decide which barristers to use. A barrister that's good for a jury is different from a barrister that's good for a judge-only case. And so you make a team. And so basically a solicitor is actually a manager. He's bringing the team together to win the case. But actually, if during the case you've not challenged some of the views that are held by witnesses or experts, when it gets to trial, you'll fall apart. The same goes in my job as a politician. Have a wide range of views. There's nothing worse than an echo chamber. There's a great phrase from Matthew Syed called cognitive diversity, right? I believe in diversity because if you've got women around you, they've got different experiences to men. If you've got minorities around you, different experiences to men. You mentioned, one of the kinder transport survivors, first generation immigrants, different, working class, right? People from outside London. A range of views. What you don't want, Jake, is there's an idea. All 15 of you think it's a great idea because nobody's actually kicked the tires.
So how do you encourage that then? Because I can easily see how people go, well, I'm not going to challenge him. He's the mayor of London.
Really good point. And by the way, I've been in rooms, when I was a baby MP and a baby solicitor where I wouldn't challenge because the environment wasn't conducive to baby members challenging when the alpha comes up with an idea. And that goes to, you asked the question, Damian, about what's high performance. And I mentioned work ethic, but the second thing is create the environment by treating people with respect, that they can volunteer things and come up with ideas. I found that challenging, by the way, during the pandemic, because Teams and Zooms doesn't if you're a junior member of the team, you don't lack confidence. So I'd encourage them use the chat room. If you don't want to speak, use the chat room. Turn your camera on so we can see. But you've got to encourage an environment, Jake, because otherwise it's just the alpha or the top advisors, suggesting stuff, and everyone's too scared to challenge that, because if people think that this person's got my ear, they don't want to challenge them and be undermined. But that's really important. Process matters. When I used to be a lawyer, we used to have a type of case called a judicial review. What a judicial review basically is, you're using the judges to review a decision taken by a public authority. And often the substantive decision was a poor one because of procedural irregularities. Okay. Politicians or policymakers hadn't followed the right process, not consulting properly, not engaging properly, and so forth. And so process matters. And if you've got good process, it leads to good decisions. And so, it's really important. Have the meetings, have the engagement, listen to the ideas, be receptive to challenge. And, we practice. So we say, what's the good things, what's the bad things? And we also we have lots of analytics. So we do use focus groups. We use polling. My job is to make sure on a 4-year cycle I can reapply for my job and win again, right? This is a popular policy. And the tension, Jake, is when to provide follow the polls, what people are saying, when to provide leadership, which may in the short term be unpopular, and to drown out what can sometimes be a vocal minority versus the silent majority. There's a great piece of advice I was given by a former mayor of New York. I'm always asking for advice, always. And that's the other thing, I never stop asking for advice. That's why I was fascinated by Keely's visualization, the reward for winning gold, the Porsche, I love it. Yeah. I feel less guilty now because I have my own sort of things.
Would you allow yourself to buy the car if you got silver?
No.
Really?
Yeah, no.
So it's gold and you get the car?
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's a great advice that a former mayor in New York gave me. He said, listen, New York's population, it's relevant to the story, is about 8.1 million. Our population is 9.7 million in London. Not that I'm competitive, right? So he said, listen, even if 90% of the city love you and approve of what you're doing, and it's never that high, and 10% hate what you're doing and disapprove, that 10% is 810,000 people. 10%, but don't forget the 90%. So he said, if in London, even if 90% of people are happy with what you're doing, never that high, that's 970,000 people who may disapprove. Now, they can make a lot of noise, but as long as I've done the work, I know I'm making the right decision, I've got to actually try and persuade them I'm doing the right thing. But if they still aren't persuadable, I've got to ignore the 10% because the 90% support what I'm doing.
So do you have any techniques you could share with us about how you do invite that dissent so that it's practical and useful rather than just being abusive or empty noise?
Yeah, well, firstly, I think you've got to be authentic. I think most subordinates, most colleagues can see through somebody who's inauthentic. So if you're a nasty piece of works, all right, you got to try firstly stop being a nasty piece of works, right? That's not a conducive personality to being a great leader, right? You may be successful, by the way. We all know, I'm sure if we're honest, some nasty piece of works have been successful, right? But you want your consistency. And so you got to be authentic. So I bring humor into it. I try and lighten the atmosphere and stuff. Everyone knows though that I'm demanding. I mean, but I'm demanding on myself. So if you work with me, you work hard, but you'll have fun. It's going to be a hell of a ride. You'll enjoy the experience as well as the memory. But you got to work hard. But the environment we create is one where everyone is treated as an equal. Whether you're an apprentice, whether you're a junior member of the comms team, whether you're a baby speechwriter, whether you're somebody who's just joined the research department, you're treated with respect. We don't talk badly of each other. The phrase in politics is briefing. So-and-so's briefing against so-and-so.
Horrible.
You hear stories now about the new number 10, about briefing. It's just horrible, right? We have an environment where, I'm really proud. I've been in the mayor for 8.5 years. no briefing within City Hall about any other personalities and stuff.
Right.
I'm also bringing outsiders. So I've got a number of deputy mayors who aren't politicians because it's the cognitive diversity point, right? Politicians are all well and good, but we're not the bee's knees and stuff. So, you know, some of my deputy mayors never been in politics before at all. But their experiences are crucial in the environment because they come from a different vibe, a different background and stuff where it's not adversarial. And so that leads to an environment where you can talk about these things. And the other thing is because I think it's a pleasant environment, people socialise together. And I encourage that because often you have your eureka moment outside office hours because you'll be thinking about it. You know, you could be lying in bed thinking about something, it'll come to you. Or you could be out and about having a drink. Or the amount of messages I get from staff during some holidays, on holiday, right, saying, I've got this great idea. Because what I say to my staff is, listen, I'd rather we steal well than invent badly. Right? So they'll be on holiday in City A. It's like, these are amazing. Why don't we do this in London? I said, let's do it.
Like, can you give us an example then where all those component parts have led to a really smart or effective decision? So the socialisation, the respect for others, the lack of...
I'll tell you a recent example, which is relevant to what we're talking about is, so the thing with politics is most members of the public, and most of your listeners, if we're honest, and those who view this, they're not politically engaged. And so the challenge for us is to get them registered to vote and to vote right. Now, our generation are reasonably well engaged, right? But the younger generation between 18 and 24 in particular are not engaged. And so what happens is politicians have policies that reflect those who are going to vote. Because if pensioners vote, don't be surprised if politicians focus on policies that are pensioner friendly, right? If younger people don't vote, don't be surprised if politicians don't focus on policies that are for younger people. Anyway, about 6 months ago, some members of my team said, listen, this great idea, Sadiq. I said, yeah, what? He goes, we think you should promise to bring WrestleMania to London, international WrestleMania to London. I said, what's WrestleMania? Right. It's huge. Oh, what do you mean, what's WrestleMania? Right. I said, what, you know, I remember Big Daddy, right? Giant haystacks. And that's right. I stretch John Cena, right? Or The Rock, right? It's huge. So they showed me some films like WrestleMania and stuff, and it's huge, by the way. You know, we should speak to the organisers, right? WWE, and get international WrestleMania to London. I said fine, but it feels a bit. It's a bit of a gimmick. I don't really. Anyway, we did some research, did the due diligence, see if it was a goer and stuff, because we brought NFL here. I brought MLB here. I'm trying to bring basketball here. Right? Oh my God, it broke the internet. So we did the research. I announced it. I'm going to bring, if I'm re-elected, international WrestleMania to London. I tell you this, Damian, my Twitter went berserk. My Facebook went berserk. People on the tube during the campaign weren't asking about housing, right? Or about, climate change. It was, is it true you're bringing WrestleMania here? Within 6 weeks, Triple H is in City Hall discussing bringing WrestleMania to London. Now, I gotta be honest. I blagged it a bit with Triple H and with the team, right? That with their team, but it's going to come. Not my idea, right? Not my thing.
Amazing.
But
WrestleMania won the mayoral election.
I tell you what, honestly, it's huge, Jake. I mean, you sort of jokes because what it is about. It's the power of sport, by the way, as well. I mean, it's about us being a global city. It's about Paris hasn't got it, Madrid hasn't got it, Barcelona hasn't got it, Frankfurt hasn't got it.
Is that a thing? Like rivalries between cities, looking at what have Paris managed to get themselves, what have Madrid done?
See, we collaborate a lot, but we compete a lot. We're very competitive.
Yeah.
But we do work together as well. So we pinch ideas. We've got a forum. So I'm also chair of something called C40. Originally 40 cities, now 97 of the biggest cities in the world. The LAs, the New Yorks, the Parises, and in the global majority, the Dakars, the Freetowns. And we meet regularly, virtually and stuff. We meet in person when we can. And we are competitive, yeah. I want London to be, it already is, but I want it to stay the sporting capital of the world. So, I'm jealous of the Paris Olympics. I think they were fantastic. They were amazing. I think we should get the Olympics back to London, right? 2040. When I see something taking place, and I see the boxing in Saudi. I was really proud to bring, Joshua and Klitschko to London. Eddie Hearn said he wants to break more records. Let's do it. 90,000 at Wembley. Dubois and Joshua taking place at Wembley. So I want the biggest events to take place in London, and so I'm competitive. So if I see another city doing something, and I think we can do a better job or do it as well, let's do it, yeah.
You've mentioned hard work a lot of times already. And interestingly, your lovely team who arrived just before you, I said, what would be a great thing to talk to Sadiq about? And the first answer was, well, I'm inspired by his hard work. That's what they said.
It wasn't a grievance, was it?
No, it wasn't a grievance. It was a positive. And we can talk about how you get people to work hard, but also sort of protect their home lives as well. But I'd love to know, what does hard work look like to you? How do you know when you're really working hard?
I'm going to tell you a secret that I've noticed about high performers. They are laser focused on the power of the gut. You heard me right, the gut. Because the gut and overall health are intrinsically linked. And that's why so many high performers take a probiotic. And one which keeps on being discussed is this, Biotic by Heights. Like, I've been taking it for over a year now, and it is so good. It's one of only 3 products in Europe that's Informed Sports certified. That means it's taken by Olympians, Premier League footballers, Guinness World Record holders, international rugby players. Quite simply, this is gut health for champions. So master your microbiome and treat yourself to a high-performing gut for a high-performance lifestyle with 20% off your first month. Just go to heights.com/HP or enter the code HP20 at checkout to get 20% off and start seeing the difference that Heights could make to your health.
So firstly, it should be the norm, not the exception. I think look, all of us are privileged. You in your job, me in mine. We're doing a job that we love. We're doing a job we love, right? But I recognise my job is finite. And this is why I don't understand elite sports people who, good time Charlies. You know, if you're an elite sports person, you're probably going to stop at 32, 33, unless you're Ronaldo or Messi, right? But, you know, so maximise that time, right? So I'm a politician. I'm a Labour politician, and we don't tend to win elections. We don't. So when I first ran to be mayor in 2016, the last time Labour had won a big election before 2016, when I won, was 2005. All right. We lost 2010. We lost the Scottish Parliament. We lost again in 2015. We lost again in the Scottish Parliament. Right. We lost the mayoralty. And so I spent a lot of time speaking to people who'd won 97, won 2001, won 2005. I spoke to mayors across the globe. How do you win? How do you win against the odds? And the common denominator was working hard, right? Understanding the goal, understanding what it needs to get to that goal. And the work ethic was really important. Here's the thing. I was a member of the cabinet when we lost in 2010. And many of my friends who were similar age to me, when we were honest with each other, we asked the question, did we make the most of those 13 years when we were in office, right? Could we have done more? And there was frustration that actually we probably could have done more. There was an assumption by some of my friends, don't worry, we'll win again very soon. We were out of office for a long time, 14 years. So my mentality, and I share this with my team, is it's a privilege being in the executive. It's a privilege doing this job. We may only be in it for another 3.5 years. So there's about 1,100 days left in this term. Don't assume we're going to win the next time there's an election. Use every day. There shouldn't be a day we've not used that day effectively in the job we've got. It's a privilege. And I say the same respectfully to both of you. Look, this is a great podcast and may go on for decades and decades and decades, but you know, you're doing a job you love, right? Yeah. Why would you not try and have, as many guests as possible to get the most out of it and stuff? And whatever job you do, I hope you love your job. Make the most of it, right?
What does that look like for you, making the most of it on a day?
Look, so I'm never off. I mean, I'm a 7 days a week guy, and I don't expect my team to respond out of office hours unless it's urgent or weekends. But there should be a place where we can send ideas. So I'll be, emailing and stuff. You don't respond on the weekend, but it's an idea I've got. It's saying I've got, unless it's urgent. You got to respond around the clock if it's urgent. And the social media age has meant that I think my generation of politicians have got it the hardest. You can never be off. You read history books about Churchill or about Asquith or even about JFK. They could be off. You can't be off now. Keir Starmer's Prime Minister is very different to Tony Blair's Prime Minister because of, not just mobile phones, but social media and so forth. So what it means is I'm an early riser. I was up today at 6. I had an early start, but I wanted to do 5K before I went out because I know if I've run I just feel better. And just because it's helping my physical health, I know it affects my performance in relation to, when on a visit. And the great thing about my job, but one of the most challenging, is forget no 2 days are the same, no 2 hours are the same, right? So after I do this, go to City Hall, I've got a meeting with the Transport Commissioner, I'm later on speaking to the Met Police Commissioner, I've got a team meeting with my Chief of Staff who's been away for 2 weeks, and so forth and so forth. There could be an event in the evening, there could be an event with the CBI or the Federation of Small Businesses, or it could be a community event. And again, I'm not asking for sympathy, I love it, I love this job, but you're always on though. What I mean by you're always on, I've always got to recognise, and again, another piece of advice I received from a fellow politician is, so you may be, you may be the 500th person I've met today, right? You're not, you're probably the 200th person I've met today, right? But for you, I may be the only politician you meet in a week or a month or a year, or for me, ever. So I've got to make a good impression on you, right? Because that's why I've got to be on. I can't afford to be a misery. It's my point about, in my team, I want to be high performance, high energy, because it reflects on them. If I've pandemic, if I lost my mojo, I look a bit down. It affects my team because they love me and I love them and stuff. And so it has an impact on each other. And so, we were joking about football before we came on. When you're a Liverpool fan and this guy's a Man United fan, you can joke about it quite a bit, right? And so, but there's a great thing about Klopp, and it goes back to saying, I think, before Klopp began winning stuff, he made me happy, right? Because of his interviews and the way he performed and stuff, right? There's a great saying from Maya Angelou, you may forget what somebody did, what they said, you won't forget how they made you feel. Klopp made me happy, man. He made me happy. And as the mayor, of course there's sometimes tragedies and I can't make you happy, we've got to respond to the tragedies and stuff, but I want my team, my staff, I want us to be happy. And politics should be about hope and optimism and excitement and about change, not just the doomy, gloomy stuff. Important.
But then you need purpose, right, to continue
really
that constant, relentless push. And you've mentioned a few times Keely Hodgkinson and the Porsche. So this is obviously,
I love it.
This has struck something with you. So her dream was, if I win gold, I get myself a Porsche. Do you employ similar techniques?
Yeah, all the time. All the time.
You should.
I always play mind games. So, for example, if I'm doing a 5K, I think, you know what, if I can do a 6K, I'll have a great day. And that'll make me do the 6K because I don't want to have a crappy day. And so there's lots of tricks you can play in your minds and stuff you do. So one trick I learned from Paula Radcliffe is, not personally, but she wrote about this, and is that she said when she used to run, if she was having problems, she'd start counting 1 to 100. So there's a lot of things you can do in relation to that. So I do lots of things. So I won't tell you what the means is, I'll tell you what the ends is. So there's a thing that I've done recently with my wife, actually. We've promised, if something happens, apologies, there are other brands available as well, we're going to buy Peloton, right? And so that's the prize, what we've got to do and stuff. So it's a really good motivator. And as parents, we often think we may spoil our kids, but no, it's a reward for hard work. And so, I use it as a parent as well for the kids. We went on a great holiday this year, and I said to the kids, listen, if so-and-so happens, we'll go on a great holiday this year, and and I can probably switch off because,
Was that winning the election?
There's something they had to do.
Oh, was it? Okay.
And so these little things work because it's really important. Because look, I wasn't a middle class child, but my parents worked incredibly hard. They couldn't give me the rewards I give my kids. But you want to make sure your kids have earned these rewards, because what upsets me, and I saw a lot in the law, I see a lot in politics, is the sense of entitlement.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that leads to low performance. If you think you're going to get it anyway, this get-rich-quick culture, where you think you can get overnight success. I had the privilege of going to an event a few years ago when I first became mayor at the London Irish Centre. Great organisation in Camden Town. And Ed Sheeran, right? This is a guy who sells out Wembley. Gave up a night to come along and raise funds for the London Irish Centre. Meeting Ed was great, but meeting John Sheeran, the dad, was even better. I'm at the age now where I know I know Dua Lipa's dad, man. Not forget Dua Lipa, right? I'm that sort of generation, right? And John Sheeran told me, he said, it's remarkable. He said, Ed Sheeran, forget the giving back stuff. He's a nice guy. He gives back. We know that about Ed Sheeran. He spent years before he became successful doing pubs, sleeping on sofas, going from doing 3 gigs a night, again, that's how he excelled at his art, and it is art, by the way. And so this it's really important, right? And the reward is, look, the guy's now just this global phenomenon and stuff. And so that goes to the work ethic. I want people, if you enjoy your work, right, Jake, you won't mind working hard. If you hate work, hate the environment, not only will you not come up with ideas, you're not really going to work hard. You're going to switch off. And by the way, I don't begrudge anybody who wants to do a 9-to-5 job. That's perfectly respectable, perfectly honourable. Nothing wrong with that at all. But in my line of work, I think it's really difficult.
Yeah. And what was it about running that you came to it relatively late, like you say, 10 years ago? What was it that attracted you to that?
It goes to high performance and motivation, actually, Jake. So I'm not a runner. I'm not built to be a runner. I love sports, love football, love cricket, love tennis. I used to love squash. In 2014, the Evening Standard newspaper approached me. It's London's only daily paper. And they said, listen, we've asked Ed Balls if he want to run the London Marathon for our charity. But he said, no, he's running for a Stammer charity. He's not going to do it. Would you be interested in running? Not really. But then my staff said, listen, man, you're thinking about running to be the mayor, right? The Evening Standards approach you to run the marathon for their charity. If you run the marathon, they give you good press, right? They give you good coverage and stuff. So I ran for selfish reasons, basically, to suck up to the Evening Standard, to raise money for the charity and so forth. So the good news is we raised lots of money for the charity. I beat Andy Burnham. I beat Ed Balls. The Evening Standard didn't endorse me, and I got asthma as a consequence, but that's another story, yeah.
You seem very at ease talking about the decisions you've made, the things you've done, the highs and the lows. Are you the most comfortable you've ever been as a person in a leadership position?
I think you're most comfortable after an election victory.
Yeah.
Just being, and what happens is because it's a vindication. It's very different. The first time you run on promise. When you run again, it's on delivery. When you run again, it's on delivery. You're dealing with fatigue. There's great. I mean, Gordon Brown used to advise that basically a politician has, and this, he was at his peak in the 90s and the noughties, has a 7-year cycle basically. If you do a bell curve, and that's why the third victory was, which with a swing towards us and a record victory and so forth, and the rest of it. So was it's a vindication that what we're doing, and I've always thought it's the right thing to do. Genuinely felt the right thing to do, but it's been rewarded by Londoners, and so you can transfer that to any other industry. Share prices are going up. You're winning the Premier League. You will indicate it's a vindication for the work you've done, the hard graft you've done. It's paying dividends. So that leads to a sense of comfort, but I'm not in any way complacent, because
and in the spirit of vulnerability, how nervous were you before this election?
You should always be nervous if you're a politician.
Yeah.
There's a great. I'm a subscriber to the Madeleine Albright School of Thought. I'm an optimist who worries a lot, and so you're always nervous because I'm as jolly or miserable as the last voter, the last door I knock on. So I've got this superstition, which is we could be canvassing, and I will not stop knocking on doors unless I get a Labour promise. So you could so, and I deliberately, so it's like, Sadiq, we've been doing. Come on, people aren't in. I don't care. I want a Labour promise and stuff because it affects my mood. If the last person I spoke to is unhappy with something, that affects my mood. So if I can't bring them around, we're going to carry on going until we get somebody.
I love this phrase, by the way. I'm an optimist that worries a lot.
Yeah,
that sums me up. Absolutely to a T. I'm an optimist, but I'm a catastrophizer as well.
But that's a good thing, because it keeps you not in a negative way on your toes, vigilant, and not complacent. Complacency is fine in certain times in our lives and stuff. But when it comes to the job, that's a high performance job. You've got to be a bit careful in relation to it leading to poor performance or not optimizing your performance.
So would you give us some advice on how you deal with overwhelm, if you get overwhelmed? Because the decisions that you make are so impactful for so many people. What do you do to deal with overwhelm? I
learned as a lawyer this trick, which is at a normal time I'd have between 50 and 100 cases. A lot of cases, and I could pick and choose my cases towards the end of my legal career. But there could be one case really stressing you out, and it could affect you quite a lot because I'd get quite wrapped up in my cases. And I learned to compartmentalize. So what does that mean? So I'd say, listen, this one case I just can't get my head around. Let me just box this and do the other stuff that's more easier to do, other cases and stuff. And I'll come back to later on because you talk about, catastrophizing everything else, but that one case could affect all my other work. So you've got to box it up. And it's a really good life skill, but come back to it, because don't forget about it. And the same applies to other parts of your life. So you think of your life, right? So my life, use me as an example. I've got work. I'll call it work, although it affects everything. Work. I've got my wife, my children, siblings, mum, mates, my hobbies, Liverpool, FC, music. So even if one part of your life is not going well, try and do the other things that are, because that one part of your life, work, is going badly. It affects all these other things, right? All these other things.
How do you do that though?
You got to teach yourself this, and this is you can teach yourself to compartmentalize things, but if it's a serious issue, don't box it up. If it's so bereavement's a good example, right? If you're don't box up if you're grieving. You got to address the issue. You're grieving and stuff for a reason. There's a reason why you grieve and stuff, right? And so you got to teach yourself. You got to have a good circle of friends, and I'm surrounded by love at work, at home, my mum, siblings, so forth. You got to have a space where you can be vulnerable, but also that's why you got the podcast, right? To teach people these skills that are life skills, but also they will ensure that in other boxes you can have high performance. So listen, we talk about high performance in terms of my job. It's high performance in terms of my marriage, right? Date nights, going away for the weekend, really important with your kids. I'm now Swiftie. Right,
we're all now Swiftie.
And so, but see, high performance with my mates, right? If I've neglected them for a while, it's an issue because we're missing out on things. So you make time for them. My diary. You mentioned how work ethic. I diarise football. It's in my diary. I've got a 7-day diary. I diarise tennis. I diarise, going out with my mates. There's a family event tonight. It's in my diary for 2 weeks. I'm good. So you got to make time for these things. Otherwise, you'll not do them, because whatever work you do, if it's a demanding job, it can swallow up everything else. You talked about going to football yesterday and stuff. You need to make that time to do that, right? Otherwise, if you're not careful, you'll be writing a paper or writing a lecture or
listen to our conversation with Shane Parrish on this podcast, where he spoke about how you make sure the important stuff isn't swallowed up by the urgent stuff. It's really good. Really good.
Good advice.
Can I ask you about your experience on the doorsteps? Because you're going in and meeting people that don't want to listen, that don't want to engage, that can't find that common ground. And I'm interested in the lessons that you've learned about how do you get to engage with people that don't necessarily want to engage with you.
This is a big challenge for democracies across the globe. How we engage the disengaged. It's really important. That's what you're seeing across the globe, a rise in nativist populism. Because my profession, and particularly progressives in my profession, have lost the art, and politics is a combination of art and science, of doing that. So the first thing is we've got to recognise in the 2020s, it ain't just about door knocking. I door knock a lot. It's also about social media, about focus groups, about on the phone, or doing stuff like this. The medium has changed from the olden days, or even the last 10 years, to what it is now, and you've got to respect that and recognise that. I recognise a lot of people who won't open the door will listen to high performance. It's just a fact. I'm not being sycophantic. It's a fact, right? A lot of opinion formers who support we need to get foreign direct investment into London, to talk up London, listen to high performance, right? They want answer doors and so forth. And so it's been using the science to recognise what are the mediums by which people get information, which will lead to them, hopefully, if I knock on the door, them opening the door, because they know a bit more about me. So what we do regularly, Damian, it goes back to science and analytics, is we do a table of what sources of information Londoners get their news from, right? TikTok is actually huge. And most young people, and this is an opportunity and a threat, the only source of information are short TikTok videos, and the algorithms mean you get the same sorts of messages, and they're only getting one dimension. They're not getting balance and debate. When we were growing up, we'd watch the 9 o'clock news, the 10 o'clock news, newspapers, there'd be debate and opposition. We could form our own views. The algorithms now work in a way you're only getting one version of events. So it's really important, firstly, to use the mediums at our disposal. There are new ones arriving all the time, but also to understand people's concerns and fears. So I'll give you a live example. This summer across our great country, there were riots. There were riots because of, organised, some by the far right, caused by misinformation, disinformation, But actually, some of those people who are getting involved and sucked into this have genuine, legitimate concerns that demand addressing. What are their concerns? I can't get my child to a decent school. I'm waiting so long for decent healthcare. I can't get decent affordable housing. So those are genuine concerns, right?
Yeah.
And some people are trying to say, well, the source of your problem is asylum seekers or immigrants. They're playing on their fears. I think what we should do is, rather than playing on fears, address those fears, respect and recognise you've got genuine concerns, and then respond to them. And so you may get a door slammed in your face. Hopefully, you can try and engage with that person. If not, try and come back to them with a drop a note. We've got Facebook adverts. You can now do Facebook adverts that are targeted towards a postcode and so forth. So we can't afford for those people to become, if you're not engaged, you become apathetic, then you become cynical. Cynicism is a real problem for us. The dream I have, and we're working towards this, is turning what are consumers, we're all consumers, into citizens, and then active citizens. Not necessarily party political, but active, and that's really important.
We're about to move on to our quickfire questions. We are basically out of time. Before we go, though, you've just spoken about bridging the gap and bringing people together. There's a very prominent politician by the name of Donald Trump who seems to operate in a totally opposite way. How did it feel when he kept coming for you over and over again?
It's personal, right? Let's be frank. If I wasn't this colour skin, if I wasn't a practicing Muslim, he wouldn't have come for me. He wasn't coming for me because I'm 5'6", right? He's come for me because of, let's be frank, my ethnicity and my religion. So it's incredibly personal to me. It affects me, my family. What worries me, though, is not about me and my family. What worries me is the fact that he's the leader of the free world. This is the president of the USA, a country we all adore, love. We love Americans. We love American culture, but also, America's like a lighthouse. They can be somebody that's a source of good, ripples of hope and love, but also ripples of hate. So, the fact that I was speaking out against somebody whose policies were sexist, homophobic, Islamophobic, racist, wasn't because, I wanted to come to his attention, but because I have a responsibility to speak out if I think something's affecting not just Londoners, but affecting all of us. And so, it's not great. Would I do it again? Absolutely, because you've got to speak truth to power. And, and I've got a platform in the sense of, explaining that actually the policies of America has an impact on us, positive and negative. And, I think one of the things that's great about our country in America is the special relationship, the allyship. Look at our inspiration for the civil rights movement. It was America in the 60s, right? Mm. Or around LGBTQI plus rights. It was, just look at Stonewall in America and so forth. So look, a lot of my, my heroes are Americans, and long may that continue and stuff. But, I think this idea that it's a very English thing, we shouldn't say boo to a goose. I think we should. And I think, by the way, this special relationship, Jake, it applies to our working lives and your private lives. I think the responsibility you have to your work colleagues is greater to a stranger. The responsibility to your best mate is more than to an acquaintance. And USA are our closest ally. And if we can't say boo to a goose to our closest ally when they're wrong, what is the point of being best mates?
Just before we do these quickfire questions, though, because I think this is interesting. There's two options for you if Donald Trump gets into power. Ignore everything and just be like, I'm not going near him. Or, despite his behaviour, you to be the one to go, let's actually have a conversation.
Absolutely. Listen.
Which one would you do?
I would love Donald Trump, whether he wins or not, come to London and let me show him around our wonderfully diverse communities. Let me take him on the Pride March this coming summer, next summer. Let me take him to a mosque. Let me take him to some of our diverse communities and understand that actually it is perfectly compatible to be a Westerner and to be a Muslim. It is perfectly compatible to treat women with respect and to be a leader and to be a man. It's perfectly compatible to be somebody who, disagrees, but disagrees agreeably. Of course, look, we're not one homogenous society. You and I haven't discussed politics, but we all have differences. That's fine. That's the joy of a democracy. Pluralism is a good thing. But the idea that you get abusive, you use the power you've got of, having the millions of followers he has to get people to spread hatred against me is just, I think, not, it lets down the position of being president. It lets down, the position that the White House gives to people when they become president. Also, and it forgets the rich histories of our two countries.
Well, look, good luck getting Donald Trump to a Pride March. That's the optimism coming out in you, I think, right there. Finally, quick-fire questions.
Sure.
What are the 3 most important, non-negotiable behaviours that matter to you?
Work hard, treat people with respect, and understand the common purpose, the goal, the mission.
What advice would you give to a teenage Sadiq just starting out?
It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. Trust your gut.
When did you last cry?
I cry all the time when watching movies and stuff. My girls always tease me. When we're watching TV at home and the girls are there and the lights are out, they'll turn the lights on to see if I'm crying and stuff. I'm quite emotional. I mean, I didn't cry when I was young. It's fascinating. I had 6 brothers. We were quite an alpha family. We hugged. We never cried and showed emotion. It was not because maybe it's because we thought it was a sign of weakness. I went to an all boys school, but since I've got married and had kids and my parents got older, I've become more emotional.
What's your biggest strength and your greatest weakness?
I think my biggest strength is my work ethic. I'm somebody of average ability. And I always say to people, I mentor a lot of people, I say, listen, if I can do it, anybody can do it. But when I do assemblies, when I'm with young people, I just say, listen, if I, from my background, can achieve what I've done, you can easily do it. And the phrase I use is something called the London Promise. The London Promise is very simple. You work hard, you got a helping hand, you can achieve anything. And City Hall is that helping hand. And so that's my strength, I think, my work ethic. An average Joe, who's mayor of the greatest city in the world. My greatest weakness, I think, is something I've sought to address over the last 8 years, is I'm quite adversarial. And I know why, actually. I've thought about this a lot. It's because I played lots of sports. I used to be a lawyer doing lots of litigation, adversarial system. When you're in the House of Commons, it's a really gladiatorial environment. That chamber, it's like, we're at the dispatch box, all these hostiles coming in and stuff. And, I can often respond quickly without realizing that you're not being necessarily adversarial. You're asking a genuine question. And so for the last 8 years, I've tried to have altitude. The phrase, I've tried to have altitude and actually be less adversarial. And I'm still working on it, by the way. I'm still a work in progress and stuff. Because in my line of work, you can often get into the tribal politics, and it's a memory muscle thing, because my memory muscle is adversarial. Yeah. And so I'm having to teach myself not to be, and that's a challenge.
So how do you gain altitude?
Well, winning 3 times helps.
Yeah.
Success does lead to a confidence, which means you can have altitude. But also to give people the benefit of good faith. It's not male fighters all the time, it could be bona fides and stuff. And so I give people good faith. Sometimes people are being beastly and adversarial, and I can respond in kind. But give people the benefit of doubt. And actually, most people appreciate that. Also, the other thing I didn't realise is it's bloody popular. Not to be adversarial. Who'd have thought, right? Mm. And so people like it, which I find, a reward for me trying to change my behaviour, is people like that I'm not being adversarial.
Penultimate question. You've delivered so much amazing advice and wisdom from other people in this conversation. So what is the greatest piece of advice you've ever been given?
I've had loads, and I always ask for it, by the way. I'll give you 2. So when I was running in 2016, I often speak to opponents for advice who are, So when I was running in 2015, before 2016, I went to speak to, I won't name the politician, but he's an opponent, world famous. I went to speak to his right-hand man. And it's always how you ask the question. If I said to you, listen, how do you make me beat your side? That's not going to get you a good answer, right? I said, what did he do? And he said he got fit before the campaign, which I thought was interesting. He got fit before the campaign. So I take that advice, but I've sustained it. So his mistake was he then became flabby once he got the job right. So that's really important. The second piece of advice somebody gave me when I became mayor, which is great advice I always give to people, is enjoy the experience, not just the memory. It's a classic mistake we all make, and I'm cognizant now. Use it in your private life as well. So my kids are now 24 and 23, and so we make the most of every day with them and stuff, because there'll be a stage where they'll move out. As we say, we're joking, they're going to move out, and your kids are younger than mine, but when they're up to about 10 or 12, they want to be with you all the time, right? Then they become teenagers and they want to be with their mates and so forth, and so rather than looking back in the memory of them, try and enjoy the experience, man. So if they want to go to a gig and they want you to go with them, hallelujah, go, make the time to go, because that experience is really important, and enjoy it. Don't just do it for the memory. And the same goes with my job, by the way. I'm trying to enjoy the experience and stuff as well. And so, enjoy the experience rather than looking back and saying, what a great time that was.
Brilliant. And the final question, Sadiq, is what's your one golden rule to live a high performance life?
It's something I live by, and it comes from it's a golden rule. And what's fascinating is it comes from all the Abrahamic faiths, but also it applies whether you are religious or secular. It's treat others how you'd want to be treated. It's a very simple thing to do. So whether you're a doctor, how would you feel if you're a patient? When you're given a piece of bad news, how would you feel if your parents received that bad news? Or when you're a politician, how would I feel if a politician didn't give my mum the time of day? How would I feel if they ignored an email from my niece? And so, treat others how you want to be treated. And the same goes to the workplace, by the way. How would I feel if I was a baby political advisor and I had this great idea, and the mayor was dismissive about the idea, or if I was a business person with a great idea or whatever. So, treat others how you'd want to be treated. It's something I've lived by, and my parents lived by it and stuff as well, and it's still been in pretty good stead.
What a lovely way to finish. What a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
Struggling to find the motivation? Try this instead.
Take it professionally, not personally.
Why are we postponing love and community and friendship?
I'm not worried if anyone fails, as long as we are changing things for the good.
To have those kinds of friendships, I think, are absolutely essential to being what we would call a high-performance human being.
Take back control over your happiness. Give the High Performance app a try, then see how you feel.